And so we settle in. You can feel your body beginning to grow heavy in the most pleasant way. In our time together tonight, there is nothing to examine, nothing to understand, only the gentle rhythm of a story. A story that begins not with a queen, but with the woman who was, for a time, more powerful than the queen. A story about the Sun King's glittering, celebrated favorite. As you begin to settle, just one gentle thought. If this space feels like a comfort to you, you might consider a soft tap on the like or subscribe button, but only if that thought feels as effortless as a quiet breath. Before we drift too far, you're also welcome to leave a quiet comment, perhaps with just the name of your city, or the time of night where you are. It's a lovely way for us to feel this quiet community spread all across the sleeping world. And so, find that gentle darkness in your room, perhaps with a soft blanket pulled a little closer as we begin our slow drift into tonight's tale. The first thing you notice is the light. It spills from 1,000 candles, each one a tiny captured star, and it glints off everything. It flashes on the diamond buckle of a courtier's shoe, warms the golden thread in a vast tapestry, and catches in the facets of the wine glass you hold in your hand. You are at the very center of this universe of light. You are Athena is de Montespan, and this is your world. You stand beside him, Louis the King. His official, rather pious Spanish wife, Queen Maria Theresa, is somewhere in the glittering throng of bodies. You honestly couldn't say where. She is a shadow, a polite formality. You are the reality. When the king smiles, it is for you. When his hand rests, ever so lightly, on the small of your back, the entire room takes note. Every baron, every visiting ambassador sees it. And your displeasure is a winter frost. Tonight is one of the king's famous apartment evenings, a thrice-weekly spectacle of cultivated chaos he invented to keep his nobles close. And by close, I mean under his thumb. It's a brilliant strategy, really. Keep them all here at his new, ever-expanding palace of Versailles, dazzling them with music and gambling and mountains of food, and they'll be too busy and too broke to plot rebellions back on their country estates. You drift through the rooms, a vision in pale blue silk. It took for maids nearly 2 hours to get you into this dress, a creation that probably weighs more than a small child. Ever? The point is to be a masterpiece, a living work of art that complements the ultimate masterpiece, the king himself. He is the sun, and you, my dear, are the planet he has drawn closest, the one that shines with his reflected glory more brightly than any other. You pass the buffet tables, groaning under the weight of their own absurdity. There are jellies molded into the shape of castles, roasted peacocks laid rest in their own feathers, and a ham decorated with so much gold leaf it looks like a treasure chest. It's a performance, just like everything else. A show of wealth and power so overwhelming it's meant to stun the senses into submission. Your wit is as sharp as the crease in the king's stockings. When a fawning duke compliments your beauty, you reply with a quote from a Roman poet that sails elegantly over his head, leaving him smiling and confused. You trade barbs with the king's own brother, Felipe, a man who adores fashion and gossip as much as you do. You are not just beautiful, you are clever. And this, you believe, is your true hold on the king. He is a man who bores easily. Later, you walk with him in the gardens. The sound of the party fades behind you, replaced by the gentle splash of a new fountain and the chirping of crickets. The air is cooler here, scented with damp earth and night-blooming jasmine. Versailles is still a work in progress, a glorious, muddy, chaotic construction site during the day. The air rings with the sound of hammers and the shouts of masons. But at night, under the moon, you can almost see the king's vision for it. Magnificent world he is building around himself. He speaks to you not of love, but of statecraft, of a treaty with the Dutch, of a troublesome minister, of the plans for a new wing of the palace. And you listen, offering your thoughts. This is a matter of some debate, you know. Future historians will argue endlessly about it. Were you just a beautiful distraction? Or did your opinions actually shape policy? Did Louis, a man who saw himself as God's chosen ruler, truly listen to his mistress's advice on matters of war and diplomacy? Or did he just enjoy the echo of his own thoughts in your clever mouth? In this moment, holding his arm, you allow yourself to believe it's the former. You are his partner, his secret, uncanoodled queen. He stops and turns to you, his eyes, so serious a moment ago, now filled with that familiar possessive warmth. He touches a stray curl that has escaped your elaborate hairstyle. In this light, with the moon overhead and the sound of his project all around you, you feel invincible. The queen is a ghost in the palace, and the courtiers are merely moths fluttering around your flame. You have given the king 7 children, and he has legitimized them all, giving them titles and fortunes. You are not just a passing fancy. You are an institution, a dynasty. As you walk back towards the glittering palace, you feel a sense of profound, unshakable security. The world is beautiful, the king loves you, and tomorrow will be just as perfect as today. It is a dangerous thought, but tonight, in the heart of the sun's warmth, it is the only thought you have. But that feeling of invincibility, as warm and comforting as it was under the moon, has a way of evaporating in the morning light. The next day begins not with a lover's whisper, but with the sound of shuffling feet outside your door. It's the sound of your world waking up and immediately beginning its endless, exhausting performance. And you are its lead actress. Your apartments are a kingdom in miniature. You have a suite of rooms larger and more lavishly decorated than those of the actual queen. This is a fact not lost on anyone, least of all the queen herself. As you are woken by your senior lady in waiting, the performance begins. Getting dressed is not a private act, it's a tiered reception. The highest-ranking duchesses are allowed in first, to see you in your bed jacket. Lesser ladies are admitted as the first layers of clothing are put on. By the time the corset is laced, an aggressive act of structural engineering that feels like it's rearranging your internal organs. The room is full of women, all watching, all smiling, all judging. You step out into the gilded corridor and the performance space expands. The air is thick with the scent of beeswax, expensive perfume, and something else, something less pleasant. This is the great, unspoken Ruth of Versailles. It is a masterpiece of art and architecture, but its sanitation is, to put it mildly, a work in progress. With thousands of people living in a space designed for hundreds, the magnificent hallways sometimes double as discreet latrines for a desperate courtier. The perfumed air is a constant battle against a more fundamental reality. It's a detail you try to ignore, holding your own scented handkerchief a little closer. You make your way towards the king's wing, your posture perfect, your face a mask of serene confidence. Your destination is the new marvel of the palace, the one everyone is talking about, the Hall of Mirrors. It is a corridor of impossible light. On one side, massive windows look out over the gardens. On the other, 17 perfectly matched arches are filled with shimmering mirrors, a staggering display of wealth, as mirrors of this size were ruinously expensive. They reflect the light from the windows, the gardens, the chandeliers, and they reflect you. And that is the hall's true secret purpose. It's not just a hallway. It's a stage. As you walk its length, you see yourself from 100 angles. But more importantly, you see everyone else. You see their reflections watching your reflection. There is nowhere to hide. A flicker of anxiety in your eyes, a slight stumble in your step, the tiniest chain on your hem, it's all magnified, reflected, and broadcast to the entire court. Silent judgment of the mirror. The king uses this space for his daily walk from his private apartments to the chapel. To be there when he passes, to catch his eye, to receive a nod. This is the central drama of the court's day. You see powerful men who command armies and govern provinces, standing for an hour, pretending to have a casual conversation. But their entire being is focused on the door at the end of the hall, waiting for the king to appear. Historians will debate this for centuries. Was this ridiculously complex etiquette? This life of choreographed ritual simply the product of a king's massive ego? Or was it something far more cunning? A psychological cage. Louis had seen the chaos of civil wars in his youth, when powerful nobles rose up against the crown. Now, he has them here, not fighting him with swords, but fighting each other for the privilege of holding his candlestick as he goes to bed. He has replaced their ambitions for power with ambitions for proximity. He has domesticated them. And as you watch a duke practically trip over a baron for a better viewing spot, you can't help but think the king's strategy is nothing short of genius. You, of course, do not have to jostle for position. You are granted access. You might attend the king's lever, the public ceremony of his waking and dressing. It's another piece of political theater. The highest-ranking nobles are granted the honor of passing him his shirt. It sounds absurd, and it is, but to be the one chosen is a sign of immense favor, a signal to the entire court. Your presence at these intimate, yet public, rituals is the bedrock of your status. But it's a status that requires constant maintenance. Every day is a new audition. Every conversation is a test. Every smile must be perfectly calibrated. It is dazzling, yes, but it is also deeply, deeply, deeply exhausting. And as you stand in the blinding light of the Hall of Mirrors, you feel the strain of holding your own reflection perfectly still. The change, when it comes, is not a storm. It's a shift in the air, so subtle that at first, you think you're imagining it. It's a flicker of something in the king's eyes, a shadow that passes so quickly you can't be sure it was there at all. But it was, and it happens again. It begins during one of the endless card games in the apartment evenings. The king loves cards, not for the gambling, but for the company. He sits at the head of the table, and you are always seated at his right hand. Tonight, he is playing Lance-Cunette, a game of pure, dumb luck. Cards are turned, fortunes are won and lost on the whim of the deck. As you lean in to whisper a teasing comment about his terrible luck, he doesn't turn to you with that immediate conspiratorial smile. His eyes remain on the cards, his focus elsewhere. He gives a brief, distracted nod, but the connection, that spark that has defined your life for over a decade, isn't there. It's like a door that was always open has been quietly closed and locked. Your heart gives a little jolt, a physical pang of alarm. You smooth the silk of your dress, your own reflection catching in the polished surface of the table. Is there something wrong with your appearance? Your ladies in waiting assured you that the tiny flecks of silver in your powdered hair were a triumph of fashion. Was it a mistake? Your mind races, cataloging every detail of your own presentation. A few days later, you are in the gardens with him. He is excitedly explaining the complex hydraulics of a new fountain, a system designed by the finest engineers in Europe to make water dance and leap in defiance of nature. He has always shared these passions with you, for architecture, for engineering, for the mechanics of glory. But today, his explanation feels rote. He is speaking at you, not to you. He is narrating his own greatness, and you are simply part of the audience. The easy intimacy you once shared, the feeling of being inside the fortress of his mind is gone. You are on the outside now, listening to the official tour. The most telling sign comes in the form of his confessor. Father de Lachaise is a quiet, unassuming Jesuit priest, but he wields an influence over the king that even you cannot match. For years, the king has lived in a state of public unrepentance in with you, a married woman. The church has officially disapproved, of course, but Louis is the king. The rules have always felt flexible. Lately, however, you've noticed the king spending more and more time with the priest. Their conversations are long and hushed. After these meetings, the king seems thoughtful, distant, and carries with him an air of pious melancholy. You know what this is about. The king is approaching middle age. He has won his wars, built his palace. Now he is starting to think about his soul. And you, my dear, are the single greatest obstacle between Louis XIV and a state of grace. You are the living, breathing symbol of his grandest sin. For years, this sin was a source of pride, a demonstration of his power to defy even God's laws. But now it seems to be a source of anxiety. This is a point of real historical fascination. Just how devout was Louis? Was his late life turned to piety a genuine crisis of faith, a man terrified of eternal damnation, or was it a political calculation, a way to consolidate his image as the most Christian king, a moral leader for his people, now that his youthful conquests were behind him? The truth as somewhere in the murky middle. But for you, the cause doesn't matter. The effect is what chills you to the bone. Every prayer he utters feels like a small judgment against you. The final, undeniable proof comes one night in his chambers. The elaborate public ritual of his retiring the cowker is over. The nobles have all backed away, bowing, and you are finally alone. Or you should be. But he hesitates. He speaks of being tired, of needing to read some state papers. He gives you a kiss on the forehead, a gesture of affection. Yes, but a chaste, almost paternal one. It is a dismissal, a gentle, polite, but unmistakable command to leave. As you walk back to your own opulent rooms, the long, silent corridors of Versailles feel different. They are no longer the pathways of your kingdom. They are cold and vast. The flicker of doubt you felt at the card table has grown into a cold, hard knot of certainty in your stomach. The sun is not shining on you with the same intensity. It is beginning, ever so slightly, to turn away. Then you know with a terrifying clarity that you are standing in a fading light. The source of that fading light isn't a change in the weather. It has a name, and her name is Angelique, Mademoiselle de Fontainebleau. She is barely a woman, just 18 or 19 years old, and serving as a lady-in-waiting to the king's sister-in-law. You notice her the way you notice a new piece of porcelain, pretty, delicate, and entirely decorative. She is everything you are not. Where you are witty and sharp, she is quiet, commanding presence. Hers is the doe-eyed, innocent beauty of a country girl, fresh and unspoiled. At first, you don't see her as a threat. You've seen the king's eyes wander before. It's a monarch's prerogative. He might have a brief, meaningless flirtation, a little satellite affair, as the court cruelly calls them. It means nothing. It's a passing shower, while you are the permanent climate. You vanquished prettier rivals, clever rivals, then younger rivals, and younger rivals, and younger weapons at all. She barely speaks, blushing and stammering whenever the king so much as looks in her direction. It's almost pitiable. But you underestimate the power of novelty. The king has been with you for over a decade. He knows your every opinion, every gesture, every clever turn of phrase. You are a magnificent, but familiar book. Angelique is a single, perfect, unread page. Her blushing silence is not a weakness. It is a blank canvas onto which the king can project whatever he desires. Her innocence is as a tonic to his world-weary soul, a balm to his husband's conscience. Being with her isn't a sin in the same grand, defiant way. It's a peccadillo, a minor indulgence. She pulls her horse to a stop, flustered and embarrassed. But the king, riding nearby, sees it. He sees this vision of accidental, natural beauty. He rides to her side, dismounts, and helps her. He speaks to her with a gentleness and focus you haven't received from him in months. Later that day, she appears at the evening reception, her hair tied back up with a ribbon in a new, informal style that mimics her charming disarray in the woods. Instantly, every woman in the court takes note. The Fontaine's hairstyle is born, and you, sitting in your perfectly coiffed elaborate construction, suddenly feel dated. You feel like a monument while she is a fresh flower. This is one of 100 tiny, infuriating anecdotes that survive from the era, and it's a perfect illustration of how court favor worked. Did this little incident with the hair really happen exactly like that? Who knows? Historians have to rely on memoirs written years later. Was it a genuine, spontaneous moment or a calculated bit of theater by a seemingly innocent girl who was smarter than anyone gave her credit for? The academic jury is still out. But in the ecosystem of Versailles, the story itself becomes the truth. The story is told, it is repeated, and it solidifies a new reality. Angelique is the king's new delight. Soon, the signs are impossible to ignore. She is given her own suite of apartments, small but beautifully appointed. She receives gifts of jewelry, pearls that you yourself had admired. The king starts visiting her openly, and the court, that cruel barometer of power, begins to shift. The crowds that once parted for you now part for her. The smiles that were reserved for you are now directed at this child. And she doesn't even seem to know what to do with them. She just drifts through the palace in a haze of happy confusion, a beautiful, simple creature who has, through no apparent effort of her own, stolen your son. Your fear is no longer a vague anxiety. It is a sharp, specific, and all-consuming reality. It has a name and a face, and a ridiculous ribbon in its hair. The court of Versailles operates on a very particular frequency, a high-pitched hum of constant observation, and you are an expert at reading its signals. Now, all those signals are telling you one thing: you are losing. It's not in grand pronouncements or official decrees. It's in the small things, the subtle shifts in social temperature that are as real and as dangerous as a change in the weather. It's in the way people look at you, or rather, the way they look away. Before, your gaze was a thing of power. To meet your eye was to be acknowledged. Now, when you enter a room, you see courtiers suddenly find something fascinating to study on the ceiling. Conversations that were animated and loud drop to a conspiratorial whisper as you approach, only to resume their normal volume once you've passed. It's a social quarantine, a polite but firm exclusion from the circles of relevance. Then there's the laughter. Versailles is a place of cultivated wit and sharp tongues. and you have always been one of its premier practitioners. But now the laughter feels different. It feels pointed. You'll be walking down the hall of mirrors and hear a burst of giggles from a group of young ladies in waiting. When you turn, they fall silent, their faces a mixture of panic and poorly concealed amusement. Are they laughing at you? At your dress? At the rumor that the king spent the entire previous evening with Mademoiselle de Fontainebleau? You can't be sure, and that uncertainty is a form of torture. The entire palace has become a hall of whispers, and every single one seems to be about you. Even your own allies, the people who have built their careers on your patronage, begin to hedge their bets. A minister who once sought your opinion on everything now gives you vague, non-committal answers. A duchess who was your staunchest defender in every social skirmish now seems to have a sudden, passionate interest in the sweet. She praises the girl's natural grace and unaffected charm, each compliment a tiny poison dart aimed directly at you, the master of artifice and sophistication. It's a quiet, bloodless betrayal, but a betrayal nonetheless. This is the brutal reality of a system built on personal favor. There are no job descriptions, no guaranteed contracts. Your power is entirely dependent on one man's affection, and when that affection wanes, the entire structure you've built around yourself begins to crumble. Everyone at court is a masterful political strategist in their own small way. They have to be. Their survival depends on correctly predicting who will be in favor tomorrow, next week, next year. The smart money is moving away from you. There's a curious psychological phenomenon that historians and sociologists still talk about, a sort of courtier's instinct. It's the ability to sense a shift in the power dynamic before it's ever officially announced. It's not magic, it's a highly developed skill of reading micro-expressions, of noting who stands closer to the king, of tracking the flow of gifts and invitations. It's a collective intelligence, and its consensus now is that your reign is over. To be seen as your close friend is to risk being caught on the wrong side of history. So they create distance with polite excuses and sudden obligations elsewhere. The worst part is the pity. The Queen, Maria Theresa, who you have ignored and publicly humiliated for years, now looks at you with a kind of weary sympathy. She has lived her entire life in this position of quiet irrelevance, and now you are joining her eyes, only a shared, bitter understanding. It is, in its own way, more insulting than open hostility. You are forced to watch the king dote on Angelique. You see him laugh at her simple-minded jokes, the ones you would have disdained. You see him listening with rapt attention as she describes some mundane detail of her day. He calls her his belle creature, his beautiful creature, his beautiful creature. He gives her a duchy, making her the Duchess of Fontainebleau. The title, the wealth, the public adoration, it was all yours. Every public display of his affection for her is a public announcement of his disaffection for you. And in the glittering, cruel theater of Versailles, there is no escape from the show. Your first instinct is to fight back with the weapons you know. You are a woman of immense intelligence, charm, and influence. You built an empire on your wit. Surely you can use it to win back a single man. So you try. You try to be more dazzling than ever before. You commission new gowns, each one more spectacular than the last. You host your own glittering salons, filling your apartments with the cleverest poets, the most brilliant playwrights, and the most amusing gossips. You try to create a center of gravity that can compete with the king's. A rival court where the conversation is sharper and the company is more select. It's a bold move, a power play designed to remind Louis of what he is missing. For a while, it seems to work. Eager for the scintillating conversation, the feeling of being in the real center of intellectual life. But the one person you want to attract remains conspicuously absent. The king hears of your brilliant parties, of course. He even compliments you on them, with a distant, polite air, as if you were a talented court entertainer. But he does not come. He is busy, he says. Or he prefers a quieter evening. The truth is, he is spending those quiet evenings with the Duchess of Fontainebleau. Your dazzling display of wit only serves to highlight the contrast between you and your rival. You are magnificent but demanding. She is simple and restful. In his middle age, the king is beginning to prefer rest. So you change tactics. If brilliance won't work, perhaps piety will. You know his conscience is troubling him. You begin attending Mass more frequently, and with a great show of devotion. You kneel, your back ramrod straight, your eyes fixed on the altar. You commission a new private chapel. You speak of the importance of faith and the need for forgiveness. It is a performance of repentance, designed to show him that you too are ready to walk a more righteous path. You don't have to choose between me and God. I can be devout too. This leads to a rather bizarre and very public spiritual rivalry. The king, urged on by his confessor and his own anxieties, embarks on a campaign of morality. He publicly denounces the low necklines of the ladies' gowns. The next day, every woman at court, including you, appears swathed in fabric up to her chin. He makes a show of fasting even more rigorously, looking pale and interesting as you refuse even a sip of broth. It's a competition of holiness, played out on the public stage of Versailles. But it's a game you cannot win. Because for him, the path to true piety has a very clear, simple first step. He must renounce his adulterous relationship with you. Your piety is seen not as genuine, but as a strategic maneuver. And the more you try to demonstrate your holiness, the more you highlight the sin that you represent. The king's confessor, Father de la Chaise, is not fooled. He sees your public devotion for what it is and gently, but firmly, continues to counsel the king that true salvation lies in separating himself from you completely. Historians often ponder the king's state of mind during this period. Was he torn? Did he still love you? It's a question that has no easy answer. Human emotions are messy, and a king's are no different. He had spent more than a decade with you. You were the mother of 7 of his children. There was, without doubt, a deep and abiding bond. But he was also Louis XIV, a man who saw himself as the living embodiment of France, a figure with a destiny to fulfill, required a different kind of life. His personal affections were being pitted against his public duty and his private fears for his immortal soul. Your attempts to win him back are failing. Your wit seems to push him away. Your piety seems to convict him. You throw a lavish party, and he praises your taste before leaving early. You pray beside him in the chapel, and he looks at you with a sad, conflicted expression that is worse than anger. You are trying to play a game where the rules have changed and your best moves are now losing ones. The desperation begins to curdle inside you, turning from frustration into a cold, hard panic. You have tried charm. You have tried intellect. You have tried piety. None of it has worked, and you are beginning to realize that the conventional weapons in your arsenal are no longer enough. The desperation is a physical thing, a cold knot in your stomach that tightens with every passing day. You watch Angelique, the new Duchess, float by in a cloud of youthful radiance, and you feel a rage so profound it makes you dizzy. It's not just about losing the king's love. It's about losing everything. Your power, your identity. You are no longer the sun's favorite planet. You are becoming a ghost, haunting the hallways of your own former life. When the polite, acceptable methods fail, the mind starts to wander down darker, less traveled paths. The whispers that you once ignored, the ones about a different kind of power, now catch your ear. Versailles is a world of science and reason, the pinnacle of 17th century sophistication. But beneath this glittering surface, the old world still churns. A world of superstition, of folk magic, of secrets whispered by maids to their mistresses in the dead of night. It starts with your own trusted lady-in-waiting, Claude Divin des Islets. She is more than a servant. She is your confidant, your agent, the one who knows all your secrets. One evening, as she is helping you with your impossibly complex nightly undressing routine, she speaks in a low voice. She mentions that some ladies of the very highest rank, when faced with similar romantic difficulties, have sought assistance from sources outside the court. Paris. To you, living in the rarefied bubble of Versailles, the city is a dirty, chaotic, and slightly frightening place. It's the world the king deliberately left behind, but it's also a world with its own rules, its own power structures, a world that the king's light doesn't fully reach. Des Islets speaks of women who are not noble, not educated, but who possess a different kind of knowledge. A knowledge of herbs, of powders, of ceremonies that can influence a person's affection. She talks about fortune tellers who do more than just read palms. She mentions alchemists who brew more than just medicines. At first, you dismiss it. It's the stuff of peasants. You are the Marquise de Montespan, a woman of intellect and refinement. You do not believe in love potions on silly incantations. It is beneath you, but the seed is planted. And in the long, lonely nights, as you lie in your magnificent bed, the silence of your empty room screaming at you, that seed begins to germinate. What if it was nonsense? What if there was something to it? You've prayed to God, and your prayers have gone unanswered. In fact, God seems to be actively siding with your rival. Her innocence, her piety, it's all part of her appeal. Perhaps you think you have been praying to the wrong authority. If heaven has turned its back on you, maybe it is time to seek help from the other direction. The thought is terrifying. It's a line you never thought you would even approach, let alone consider crossing. To engage in such practices is not just a sin, it's a crime. It's dabbling in the forbidden, in things the church and the state have condemned in the strongest possible terms. But what choice do you have? To do nothing is to accept your fate, a slow, humiliating slide into obscurity, to be the dowager mistress, pitied and ignored, living on the king's charity while another woman enjoys his bed, his confidence, his power. The thought is unbearable. It is a kind of death. One of the more curious aspects of this era, which historians still try to untangle, is the strange coexistence of rationalism and superstition, even at the highest levels of society. This was the age of Descartes and Pascal, of scientific academies and astronomical observation. Yet, belief in witchcraft, astrology, and magical influence was still rampant. A nobleman might discuss the latest theories of planetary motion in the afternoon and visit a fortune teller in the evening to ask about the success of a business venture. The line between science and magic was often blurry. An alchemist might be a genuine proto-chemist or a charlatan selling fake gold. A healer might use herbal remedies or incantations. It was a clear division between an enlightened and superstitious peasantry. The belief in a hidden, manipulous world permeated all levels of society. So, your consideration of this path isn't as outlandish as it might seem to a modern mind. It feels like exploring an alternative science, a different set of rules for how the world works. A risky science, to be sure, but one that offers a potential solution where all others have failed. Finally, one night, the humiliation becomes too much. You have been placed at a dinner table far from the king, a clear and public demotion. Angelique sits in your old spot, laughing at something he has said. The sight of it is a physical blow. When you return to your rooms, the desperation has burned away all your fear and all your pride. You summon Des Ilettes. You tell her you are ready. You are ready to explore this darker path. The name your lady-in-waiting provides is not one you would hear spoken aloud in the glittering halls of Versailles. It is a name whispered in back rooms and anxious consultations, Catherine Monvoice Anne, though she is known to all simply as La Voice Anne. The name means the neighbor, the folksy, unassuming title for a woman who is, by all accounts, the secret queen of Paris' occult underworld. The moment the door clicks shut, you shed the role of the patient and become a conspirator. You and Des Ilettes move quickly, silently. You don't put on a simple cloak, you dress down, far down. You wear the clothes of a common bourgeois woman, a simple dark wool dress, a heavy cloak with a deep hood that will hide your face. It feels strange, the rough fabric against your skin, so different from the silks and velvets that are your daily uniform. You are shedding your identity as the Marquise de Montespan and becoming an anonymous shadow. A discreet side door, one used by servants and suppliers, is your exit from the gilded cage. A plain, unmarked carriage is waiting in a dark alley, the horses' harnesses muffled with cloth. There are no royal crests here, no liveried footmen. Just a grim-faced driver who doesn't look at you twice. As the carriage begins to rattle over the rougher streets leading away from Versailles and towards Paris, you feel a jolt of both terror and exhilaration. You have slipped the leash. You are not being watched by 1,000 eyes. The journey is a descent into another world. You leave the manicured, orderly perfection of Versailles and plunge into the dark, sprawling, chaotic heart of Paris. The streets are narrow, winding, and thick, with a smell you can't quite identify, a mixture of wood smoke, unwashed bodies, river mud, and cooking food. Torchlight throws menacing, dancing shadows up the sides of tall, leaning buildings. The carriage slows, that seem to grow narrower with every turn. Finally, it stops in a street that is little more than a muddy track. Des Ilettes gestures for you to follow. You pull your hood down tighter, your heart pounding against your ribs. The house is unremarkable from the outside, just another tall, dark Parisian tenement. But the sheer number of people discreetly coming and going hints at the nature of the business within. You are not led through the front door. A side entrance, a quick knock, and you are ushered into a waiting room. It is dark, cluttered, and smells strongly of strange herbs and incense. Even in the dim candlelight, you can see that the other people waiting are not peasants. You catch the glint of a fine silk cuff on a man's wrist, the outline of a noblewoman's distinctive hairstyle beneath her own hood. You are not the only one from your world seeking answers in this one. This realization doesn't entirely comfort you. It just confirms the scale of the quiet desperation hidden behind the court's glittering facade. After what feels like an eternity, you are summoned. You are led into an inner sanctum. The room is more like an alchemist's laboratory than a fortune-teller's salon. It's crowded with astrological charts, strange glass alambicescent retorts, and shelves lined with hundreds of jars containing dried herbs, minerals, and unidentifiable animal parts. And there she is, La Voisin. She is not a gnarled, ancient crone. She is a handsome, middle-aged woman with shrewd, intelligent eyes. She is dressed well like a prosperous merchant's wife, and she carries herself with an air of absolute authority. She looks you up and down, and you have the distinct feeling that the cheap wool dress is not fooling her in the slightest. Her gaze is penetrating, as if she can see the desperation you are trying so hard to conceal. There is some debate among historians about the true nature of La Voisin. Was she a genuine believer in the occult, a true sorceress in her own mind? Or was she a brilliant, cynical psychologist and businesswoman who had identified a desperate market and was expertly exploiting it? She was almost certainly a bit of both. She likely believed in some of her own magic, but she was also a master of reading people, of understanding their deepest fears and desires, and of selling them exactly what they wanted to buy, hope in a bottle. She does not ask your name. It's better that way. She simply gestures for you to sit. You have a problem of the heart, she says, her voice calm and even. It is not a question. It is a statement of fact. And in that moment, all your remaining skepticism, all your noble pride, crumbles into dust. You nod, unable to speak. You have come to the right place. You don't need to explain the details of your situation, or rather, she knows the shape of it. A powerful man, a younger rival, a fading affection. It is, she implies with a weary professionalism, the oldest story in the world. She listens patiently as you speak, your words tumbling out in a hushed, frantic whisper. You talk of the king, of the girl of your fear. You leave out your name and his title, but the grandeur of your problem is obvious. La Voisin nods, her expression a mixture of sympathy and business-like assessment. She doesn't offer you a magic spell or a talisman. Her approach is far more practical. She speaks of the human body as a mechanism, a machine that can be influenced. Affection, she explains, is a matter of humors, of temperament. A man's attention wanders because his internal state has shifted. The solution, therefore, is to shift it back. It sounds less like magic and more like medicine. She moves to the shelves lined with jars. Her hands, surprisingly delicate, move with practiced confidence. She takes a pinch of dark, earthy powder from one jar, a few dried, crushed leaves from another, a single drop of a thick, syrupy liquid from a small, dark blue vial. She explains, in vague but reassuring terms, what each ingredient is for. This one, she says, holding up a pinch of what looks like rust-colored dust, warms the blood and turns the mind back to old comforts. A dried flower quiets an anxious spirit and makes a man more receptive. She makes no mention of the more infamous ingredients she was known to use. There are persistent, though unproven, whispers that these love potions contained far more disturbing elements. Things like Spanish fly, a notoriously dangerous irritant, or powdered bad hearts, or even more ghoulish components. Whether this is salacious legend or grim reality is something historians still argue about. The official records of her interrogations are filled with such claims, but confessions extracted under duress are always suspect. Right now, in this dimly lit room, you don't want to know. You want to believe in the gentler, more therapeutic version of the story she is telling you. She mixes the ingredients in a small mortar, grinding them together with a pestle. The sound is soft, rhythmic, almost calming. She tells you that this is not a crude enchantment to force a man's will. It is a powder of persuasion, a gentle nudge. It must be administered regularly, in small doses in his food or, better yet, his wine. It is tasteless, she assures you, odorless. He will never know. It will simply make him feel more himself. The version of himself that with you. She packages the finished powder in a small, discreet silk pouch, no bigger than your thumb. It feels impossibly heavy in your hand. This tiny packet represents the crossing of a threshold. You are no longer just a desperate woman. You are now a conspirator, a criminal, a participant in the forbidden arts. The payment is exorbitant, a sum that would feed a poor family for a decade. You had come prepared, bringing a heavy purse of gold coins, and you hand it over without haggling. The price of hope is never too high. The carriage ride back to Versailles is a blur. The dark streets of Paris, which seemed so menacing on the way in, are now just a backdrop to the storm of thoughts in your mind. The little silk pouch is tucked securely into your glove. You can feel its slight weight, a constant reminder of what you have done. Is this madness? Are you placing your faith, your future, in a handful of dust mixed by a charismatic charlatan in a back alley? But then you think of Angelique's smiling, vapid face. You think of the king's polite, distant gaze. You think of the pity in the eyes of the other courtiers. And your resolve hardens. What has reason done for you? What has prayer done for you? They have brought you nothing but humiliation. This is something different. This is taking action. You arrive back at the palace, slipping back in through the servant's door like a ghost. You change back into your fine nightgown, hide the pouch in a secret compartment in your jewelry box, and get into your vast, empty bed. Your feigned headache is now a very real one, a throbbing mix of fear, guilt, and a strange, thrilling hope. A few days later, the opportunity presents itself. You are having a private supper with the king. It is a rare occasion now, a strained, formal affair. He speaks of politics, you agree. He talks about the weather, you offer an observation. The conversation is stilted, lifeless. As he turns to speak to a servant, your hand moves, quick as a snake. A tiny pinch of the powder from the pouch, concealed in the palm of your hand. It dissolves instantly, leaving no trace. Your heart is hammering against your ribs so hard you are sure he can hear it. But he turns back, picks up his glass, and drinks. You watch his face, searching for any sign, any change. Nothing. He just continues talking about the upcoming visit of a minor German prince. You sit back, your hands trembling in your lap, and you wait. For a few days, nothing happens. The world continues on its new, unpleasant axis. The king remains polite, distant. Angelique remains infuriatingly radiant. You begin to feel a fool. You imagine lavoies and counting your gold coins, laughing at the gullibility of another desperate, high-born woman. The little silk pouch in your jewelry box seems to mock you. You continue the applications, a tiny, furtive pinch of powder whenever the opportunity arises. A shared meal, a glass of wine before he retires. Each time is a fresh jolt of terror, a clumsy, heart-stopping moment of amateur espionage. You feel like the world's most inept criminal, but you persist, driven by a desperation that has now entirely eclipsed your pride. And then, one evening it happens. You are at the card table again, in almost the exact same situation as before. The king is playing, you are beside him. He has been losing, his mood growing steadily more irritable. You lean in, summoning your old wit, and whisper a dry, teasing comment about his luck abandoning him as quickly as his youth. It's a risky line, sharper than you've dared to be in months. And he turns. He looks at you, really looks at you, for the first time in what feels like an eternity. And he smiles. Not the polite, public smile, but the real one, the one that reaches his eyes, crinkling the corners. My youth may be fleeting, madam, he says, his voice low and for your ears only. But your wit, I see, is eternal. The table is silent. The little moment of intimacy, the shared joke, the spark. A ghost of your old relationship has just appeared, shimmering in the candlelight. Your heart does a slow, triumphant turn in your chest. It's working. The thought is so overwhelming you feel lightheaded. A few days later, there is another sign. He seeks you out after Mass. He doesn't speak of God or his soul. He asks about Louis Auguste's studies about Francois Mary's upcoming birthday. He is engaging with you on the level of family, of your shared history. He is seeing you not as his sin, but as the mother of his children. It's a subtle shift, but a significant one. He is rebuilding the bridges he had started to dismantle. The climax comes one evening when he dismisses his attendants and asks you to stay. He doesn't speak of state papers or fatigue. He walks with you onto the balcony of his chambers, overlooking the vast, dark expanse of the gardens. He is quiet for a long time, and then he sighs. He speaks of the burdens of his office, the loneliness of the crown. He speaks of how few people he can truly talk to. And as he speaks, he takes your hand. He takes your hand. It is the familiar, possessive grip you know so well. He starts visiting your chambers again. Not every night, not with the same regularity as before, but it is a beginning. The frost is thawing. The court, that sensitive, ever-watchful organism, notices immediately. The whispers don't stop, but their tone changes. They are no longer whispers of your demise, but of your astonishing, inexplicable comeback. The courtiers who had been avoiding your gaze now seek it out. The Duchess who had befriended Angelique now makes a point of complimenting your new dress. The tide is turning. You feel a sense of dizzying, triumphant power. You have done it. You have bent reality to your will. It wasn't God, it wasn't wit, it wasn't prayer. It wasn't God, it wasn't prayer. It was a pinch of dust from a back alley sorceries. This is a truly dangerous moment for you, more dangerous than any of the risks you have taken so far, because it confirms your darkest, most desperate hope that the forbidden path work. Of course, historians looking back on this period offer a more mundane explanation. Was it really the love potions? Or was it simply the natural ebb and flow of a long-term relationship? Perhaps the novelty of Angelique was wearing off. Her sweet simplicity may have become, after a while, simply boring. Perhaps Louis, after a period of pious reflection, simply missed you. He missed your intelligence, your conversation, your shared history. Spurred on by your belief in the magic, might have been the real magic all along. You became more alluring because you believed you were becoming more alluring. It's a classic chicken and egg problem of history and psychology. But you don't see it that way. In your mind, the cause and effect are crystal clear. You see a direct line between the dusty pouch in your jewelry box and the king's hand in yours. You have found a new source of power, one that seems more reliable than charm or beauty. And as you stand on the balcony with the king, the world once again at your feet, you are not thinking about your victory, and how you will never let it slip away again. Your victory, however, comes with a price tag, and the bill is presented by La Voisin, Your secret trips to Paris become more frequent, no longer cloaked in the panic of a first-timer, but with the grim regularity of a patient visiting a doctor. You need to replenish your supply of powders. And with each visit, the stakes get higher. Lavoisier is a shrewd businesswoman. She knows the value of her product, and she knows the desperation of her client. The price for the powders begins to creep up. The heavy purse of gold you brought the first time is now just the starting point. She begins to ask for more than just money. She speaks of a cousin who needs a position at court, a friend of a friend who is seeking a favorable judgment in a legal dispute. She never asks directly a story about someone's misfortune that she happens to share with you. The implication is clear. You have the king's ear once more. A word from you in the right place could solve these little problems. You are being drawn into her network, becoming not just a customer, but an accomplice, an agent of her influence within the very walls of Versailles. You hate it. It feels sordid and dangerous. But what choice do you have? To refuse is to risk being cut off from the source of your renewed power. The powders have become a dependency, an addiction. The thought of being without them, of the king's affection beginning to fade again, is a terror you cannot face. So you pay, and you pay in favors. You murmur a name to a minister, you recommend a candidate for a minor post. Each favor granted is another link in the chain that binds you to the sorceries of Paris. The powders themselves seem to require escalation. Lavoisier explains it with her usual calm, pseudo-medical authority. The body, she says, builds a tolerance, a resistance. The gentle nudges that worked at first are no longer sufficient. To achieve the same effect, the dosage must be increased. The ingredients must be made more potent. She introduces new elements. Powders that are darker in color. Liquids that are thicker and more viscous. She gives them dramatic, alluring names, the essence of Venus, the king's cordial. You try not to think too hard about what might be in them. Your willful ignorance is a shield against the growing horror of your own actions. You tell yourself you are just buying medicine to cure an ailment, but a cold, small part of your mind knows that you are buying poison. Not yet, but a poison nonetheless. A substance designed to manipulate and control another human being without their consent. This is a detail that emerges with chilling clarity from the historical records of the subsequent investigation. Lavoisier and her network of alchemists and chemists didn't just deal in harmless herbs. They were experts in toxicology. They knew precisely which substances could cause subtle effects, which could mimic illness, and which could be fatal. They had a sliding scale of solutions, from love potions to powders of inheritance, designed to gently nudge a wealthy old relative to relative. This wasn't folk magic. This was a criminal enterprise dealing in bespoke chemical weapons. The academic consensus is that many of the so-called love potions were likely complex cocktails of aphrodisiacs, sedatives, and stimulants designed to make the target more suggestible or amorous. Your life becomes a series of deceptions. You are lying to the king with every tainted glass of wine. You are lying to your friends, your family, your confessor. You are living in a state of constant, gnawing anxiety. The fear of being discovered is a metallic taste in your mouth. You watch the king for any sign that he suspects. Does the wine taste strange? Does he feel unwell after a meal? Every cough, every complaint of fatigue sends a jolt of panic through you. Your apartments, once the glittering center of your world, now feel like a cage. You are trapped. Trapped by your dependence on the powders. Trapped by your complicity in Lavoisier's schemes. trapped by the terrifying secret that you carry with you every single moment of the day. The power you have regained feels hollow, fragile. It is not your own. It is not your own. It is borrowed, rented from a woman in a dark room in Paris, and the interest on the loan is compounding daily, dragging you deeper and deeper into a world you can no longer control. You are no longer just a customer. You are in her debt, and you have a sinking feeling that the final payment has not yet been named. The king's affection, even with the aid of your secret chemistry, remains a flickering candle in the wind. The presence of Angelique B. Fontaine's is a constant, maddening draft. She is still young, still beautiful, and the king, despite his renewed warmth towards you, still finds her a delightful and restful distraction. Your powders can, it seems, win you battles, but they haven't won you the war. Your jealousy, far from being soothed, grows more toxic and obsessive. It is in this state of heightened desperation that you return to Lavoisier. You don't just want to be loved again, you want your rival gone. Not just out of favor, but gone. Vanquished, erased. Lavoisier listens to your frantic, hate-filled whispers. She nods, her face grim and serious. She tells you that what you are asking for requires a much greater intervention. The powders, the potions, they are merely working on the physical plane, influencing the human result of this magnitude. To alter fate itself, one must appeal to a higher, or rather a lower power. She speaks of forces that do not respond to simple herbs. They demand a ceremony, a black mass. The words hang in the air of the cluttered room, thickened heavy with sacrilege. Even for you, a woman who has already crossed so many lines, this is a profound shock. A black mass is not just a crime against the state. It is the ultimate act of blasphemy, a deliberate, theatrical inversion of all that is sacred. It is a pact with darkness itself. You hesitate. This is a chasm you are not sure you can cross. But Lavoisier is a masterful psychologist. She sees your fear and reframes the proposition. She doesn't paint it as an act of evil, but as an act of ultimate devotion. To what or to whom? She leaves artfully vague. She presents it as the most powerful tool available, the last resort for those whose needs are greatest. She hints that other ladies, very powerful ladies, have sought this solution and found it effective. Your mind is a battlefield. Every instinct of your aristocratic, Catholic upbringing screams in protest. The risk of eternal damnation, a concept that was once an abstract theological idea, suddenly feels terrifyingly real. But then the image of Angelique flashes in your mind. Angelique laughing with the king, wearing the pearls that should have been yours, living the life you fought so hard to build. And your hatred, your all-consuming ambition, proves to be stronger than your fear of hell. See, you agree. The arrangements are made with the utmost secrecy. The ceremony is not to be held in Lavoisier's crowded house. It will take place in a secluded, abandoned chapel on the outskirts of Paris, a place already half given over to ruin and shadows. The priest, she assures you, is a man who has lost his way, an apostate named Etienne Gui Bourg, a defrocted clergyman who now services this darker congregation. On the appointed night, you travel again in the anonymous carriage, but this time the mood is different. There is no thrill of rebellion, only a cold, heavy dread. You are taken to the ruined chapel. The air inside is cold and smells of damp stone and decay. It is lit by a few black candles that seem to absorb the light rather than give it off. At the far end, where the altar should be, is a makeshift one, and it is upon this altar that the true horror of the ceremony is revealed. You are instructed to lie upon it. You are the altar. Your own body is to be the vessel for this sacrilegious rite. The renegade priest, Gui Borg, appears. He is a dissolute-looking man with empty, haunted eyes. He is wearing desecrated vestments, the sacred symbols of his former faith stitched upside down or crossed out. He begins the Mass, his voice a droning, mocking parody of the sacred liturgy. He recites the Latin prayers backwards, twisting the words of hope and salvation into curses of despair and damnation. A chalice is placed upon your stomach. You lie there, cold and rigid, listening to the blasphemous chanting, feeling the weight of the cup on your body. You pray, but your prayers are not addressed to God. They are a desperate, whispered litany of your desires, a petition to the darkness. You pray for the king's love to be returned to you, absolute and undivided. And you pray for your rival to be removed. You pray for her to sicken, to fade, to disappear from your life forever. The historical accounts of these black masses, drawn from the later confessions of participants like Gui Borg and Lavoisier, are among the most shocking documents of the era. They speak of inverted crucifixes, desecrated hosts, and dark invocations, the most infamous detail, which historians still debate the veracity of, involved the sacrifice of an infant. Whether these extreme claims were true or were exaggerations extracted under torture to satisfy the darkest expectations is impossible to know for certain. But for you, lying on that cold stone slab, even without the most extreme elements, the reality is horrifying enough. You have offered yourself up, body and soul, as a living altar to demonic forces. You came to Lavois and seeking a simple love potion. You have now found yourself at the heart of a satanic ritual. There is no going back from this, as the last of the dreadful, inverted prayers echoes in the damp air of the ruined chapel. A profound silence falls. The black candles flicker, casting long, dancing shadows that seem to writhe on the stone walls. You lie on the makeshift altar, a chilling coldness seeping into you that has nothing to do with the temperature of the stone. It's a coldness of the soul. You are helped to your feet by Lavoisier, your limbs stiff and heavy, as if you have just woken from a nightmare. You are sinking deeper into it. You slip back into the palace, a ghost returning to its haunting grounds. As you wash the grime of Paris and the scent of the black candles from your skin, you feel a sense of profound and irreversible contamination. You have done more than just commit a crime. You have willingly participated in a ritual designed to defile everything you were raised to believe in. You have invited a darkness into your life, and now you can feel it clinging to you like a shroud. In the days that follow, you exist in a fog of anxiety. Every shadow in the corner of your eye seems to be a lurking accuser. Every peal of thunder feels like a divine judgment. You attend the real Mass in the King's magnificent chapel at Versailles, and the familiar Latin prayers, the scent of incense, the sight of the crucifix, they no longer offer comfort. They feel like an accusation. You kneel and mouth the words, the hypocrite of the highest order, your mind replaying the grotesque parody you participated in. You look at the king and you no longer see just the man you love and desire. You see the object of a demonic pact. His smile, when it is directed at you, feels less like a victory and more like a sign that your terrible bargain is working. His touch, which you craved so desperately, now carries a faint echo of the cold chalice that rested on your body. You have what you wanted, or at least the beginnings of it, but the price is a constant, secret torment. The very act itself, historians argue, represents a profound psychological break. To participate in a black mass was to fundamentally reject the entire moral and social order. It was an act of ultimate rebellion against God, the king, and the established church, the three pillars that held up your entire world. It suggests a level of desperation so extreme that you were willing to burn down the entire metaphysical structure of your universe in the hope of warming yourself by the flames. Was it a calculated risk, or a sign of a mind unhinged by jealousy and fear? The line between the two seems to have dissolved completely. You find yourself trapped in a bizarre paradox. You sought out these dark rituals to regain your power and control, but you have never felt more powerless. You are now beholden to Lavoisier, to the apostate priest Ui Borg, and to the silent, terrifying forces you invoked. They own a piece of you now. The secret you share is a chain, and they hold the other end. Life at court continues its relentless, glittering pace. For weeks, nothing changes. The king's attention remains divided, a source of constant, low-grade frustration. The Black Mass, that terrible, soul-staining ritual, seems to have been for nothing. A part of you is relieved. The thought that your blasphemy might have gone unanswered is almost a comfort. But the larger part, the ambitious, desperate part, is furious. You have damned yourself for nothing. And then, news begins to spread through the court like a contagion. The Duchess of Fontainebleau is unwell. At first, it's dismissed as a passing ailment. A fainting spell, about a fatigue. Such things are common in the stuffy, crowded atmosphere of the palace. But her condition does not improve. She begins to complain of a persistent, draining weakness. She loses her youthful color, her face becoming pale and drawn. She is forced to withdraw from the evening receptions, her place at the card table conspicuously empty. Doctors are summoned. The finest medical minds in the kingdom, men who attend the king himself, gather at her bedside. They are baffled. They bleed her, following the standard medical practice of the day, which likely only makes her weaker. They prescribe rest and noxious concoctions of herbs and minerals. Nothing works. Her vitality seems to be draining away, an invisible leak that no one can find or fix. You watch all of this from a distance, your heart a cold, heavy stone in your chest. When you hear the whispers about her failing health, a forbidden, terrible thrill shoots through you. It's working. The thought is both exhilarating and horrifying. The prayers you uttered in that dark chapel, the curses you whispered over your own body as an altar, they have found their mark. You maintain a public face of concerned sympathy. You inquire after her health with a worried frown. You play the part of the concerned fellow courtier perfectly. But in the privacy of your own rooms, you are wrestling with a monstrous combination of guilt and hope. You look at your own healthy, vibrant children, and then you think of the young woman wasting away in her apartments, and you feel a wave of nausea. Did your whispered hatred manifest as this real, physical decay? The illness takes a more serious turn. Angelique suffers a miscarriage, losing the child she was secretly carrying, the king's child. This news rocks the court. It is a tragedy, a blow to the king. He is distraught, spending hours at her bedside, but his grief is also a political and personal complication. An illegitimate child, especially a son, could have further secured Angelique's position. Now, that possibility is gone. As her body weakens, so does her hold on the king. A sick room is no place for a monarch who thrives on vitality and splendor. His visits become shorter, more perfunctory. The reality of illness, the messiness, the unpleasantness, the constant reminder of mortality, is something Louis has always sought to banish from his perfect, orderly world. The nature of Angelique's illness is, to this day, a subject of historical speculation. What did she actually die of? The official cause was vague. something related to complications from the pregnancy. Modern historians, looking back at the described symptoms, the persistent weakness, the loss of blood, have suggested everything from tuberculosis to a form of cancer, or perhaps a severe postpartum infection that the 17th century doctors were utterly unequipped to handle. But at the time, in that atmosphere thick with suspicion and belief in unseen forces, another word was whispered: poison. The gossips said. A poison that mimics natural illness, that leaves no trace. A poison administered by a jealous hand. The whispers don't have a name attached, not yet. But when people think of a jealous hand at court, their eyes inevitably flicker towards you. You feel the weight of their unspoken accusations, and you cannot defend yourself because in your own heart you believe you are guilty. Whether by a powder from Love Oisin's shop or a curse from a black mass, you believe you are the cause. Angelique lingers for months, a ghost haunting the palace. Finally, she dies. She is just 20 years old. Her brief, brilliant blaze across the court has been extinguished. You have what you wanted. Your rival is gone. But there is no triumph, no sense of victory. There is only the cold, quiet finality of her death, and a terrifying question that will haunt you for the rest of your days. Did you murder her? In the wake of Angelique's death, a strange calm settles over Versailles. The court mourns, but it also moves on, its attention shifting to the next drama, the next favorite. You resume your place, seemingly unchallenged. At the king's side, it seems you have one. But outside the gilded bubble of the palace, a different kind of storm is gathering, and its architect is a man you have never met. His name is Gabriel Nicolas de Laraigne. Laraigne is something new in France, the lieutenant general of police for Paris. The king has given him a mandate to clean up the city, to bring order to its chaos. He is a professional, a methodical, relentless bureaucrat with a passion for justice and a deep suspicion of the city's dark underbelly. He is intelligent, incorrupted, and frighteningly patient. He is, in essence, Paris' first modern police chief. His attention is not on the affairs of the court. He is focused on the gritty realities of the city. He has been investigating a rash of suspicious deaths among the common people, cases of sudden illness and mysterious fires, often linked to disputed inheritances or marital strife. He starts to see a pattern. Following the trails of gossip and informants, he begins to focus on the city's thriving community of fortune-tellers, alchemists, and so-called midwives. They are selling solutions. Deadly solutions. His investigation starts small, with the arrest of a minor fortune teller named Marie Boss. During a drunken dinner party, she boasted that she had made enough money from selling poisons to retire in luxury. Unfortunately for her, one of the guests at that party was an informant for Laraigne. She is arrested and brought in for questioning. Laraigne's methods are not gentle, but they are systematic. He doesn't just use threats, he uses logic, cross-referencing stories, finding inconsistencies, and slowly, patiently building a web of evidence. Under the pressure of his interrogation, Marie Boss breaks. She confesses to selling poisons. But more importantly, she begins to name names. She names her supplier of them all, Lavois, and suddenly, Laraigne realizes he is not just dealing with a few isolated criminals. He is looking at a vast organized network, a criminal enterprise that stretches across all levels of Parisian society. He has stumbled upon the secret industry that services the city's darkest desires. His investigation widens. He starts pulling in others from the occult underworld. Chemists who know how to distill arsenic without a trace. Priests who provide illicit services. Fortune tellers who act as brokers, connecting clients with poison arrests. With each new arrest, the web grows larger and more detailed. He is creating a map of the city's secret sins, and all roads seem to lead back to Lavoisin's townhouse. You, in Versailles, are blissfully unaware of this. The affairs of the Parisian police are beneath your notice. Your world is one of court etiquette, diplomatic intrigue, and the delicate art of maintaining the king's favor. You are focused on consolidating your position, on ensuring no new Angelique appears on the horizon. The grim business with Lavoisin, the black mass, the powders, you have pushed it all to the back of your mind. A dark secret to be buried and forgotten. You believe your pact with the darkness is a closed chapter, but Lorraine is a man who deals in facts, not fates. He isn't interested in magical curses. He's interested in chemical compounds. He is a product of the new age of reason, and he is applying that reason to the ancient trade of murder. This is a point that historians find fascinating, the clash of two worldview of Lavois and her clients, clashing with the cold, evidence-based rationalism of Lorraine, fought in the interrogation rooms of Paris. One day, Lorraine's men, acting on the detailed information they have gathered, move to arrest the queen of this underworld. They arrive at Lavoisin's house just as she is leaving to attend mass, a testament to her bizarrely compartmentalized life. She is taken completely by surprise. The great sorceress, the woman who claimed to command demonic forces, is unceremoniously arrested by a handful of city policemen. The news of her arrest causes a quiet panic among her clientele. But you, insulated by the privilege and arrogance of Versailles, may not even hear of it at first. It's just the arrest of a common criminal in Paris. It has nothing to do with you. You have no idea that the methodical policeman has just captured the one woman who holds your life, your reputation, and your soul in her hands. The net has been cast, and while you don't know it yet, you are caught right in the middle of it. The arrest of Lavoisin is like kicking over an anthill. Suddenly, the entire secret world she commanded is scurrying in panic. Lorraine and his men work with chilling efficiency, using the information gleaned from Lavoisin's initial interrogations and the mountain of evidence seized from her home, including lists of clients, chemical recipes, and vast quantities of suspicious substances. They begin a wave of arrests that sends a shockwave of fear through Paris. The city, which had been buzzing with rumors of poison for months, is now gripped by a full-blown panic. It's not just a few back-alley criminals being rounded up. Lorraine's net is pulling in people from every walk of life. They arrest other fortune-tellers and sorcerers who were part of Lavoisin's network. They arrest the chemists and apothecaries who supplied her with the raw materials for her deadly trade. They even arrest priests like the dissolute Eddie Ngui Board, who were implicated in the black masses. The stories that begin to leak from the interrogation chambers are sensational, each one more lurid than the last. The people of Paris, and soon the whole of France, are treated to a daily diet of horror. They hear tales of wives poisoning husbands for their inheritance, of lovers poisoning rivals, of families turning on each other for money and power. They hear of the black masses, the desecrated hosts, the whispered pacts with the devil. It's a vision of a society riddled with a secret mortal sickness. The scandal, which becomes known as l'affaire des poisons, is the only thing anyone can talk about. It's discussed in taverns and marketplaces, and in the salons of the nobility. The fear is palpable. Who can you trust? Is the friendly neighbor, the grieving widow, the devoted wife, secretly a client of la voisin? The affair rips the mask of civility off Parisian society, revealing the raw, ugly passions seething just beneath the surface. At Versailles, the initial reaction is one of smug detachment. It's a Parisian problem, a sordid, vulgar scandal fit for the chaotic city, but far removed from the refined and orderly world of the court. The king and his nobles look upon it as a kind of grim entertainment, a shocking spectacle playing out in the capital. They follow the news with a kind of horrified fascination, unaware that the infection is about to breach their own walls. The turning point comes when the people being interrogated under immense pressure start to name their aristocratic clients. At first, it's minor nobles, the sort of down-on-their-luck barons and viscounts who haunt the fringes of the court. But then the names get bigger. A duchess is implicated. A marshal of the French army is accused of buying powders to ensure his promotion. The infection has crossed the barrier. The sickness is not just in Paris. It's here, in Versailles, walking these very halls. The atmosphere at court changes overnight. The detached amusement coalesces into a paranoid terror. Every courtier with a guilty secret, and there are many, is now living in a state of constant fear. Who has been named? Whose secrets are about to be exposed? Old rivalries and grudges take on a new, menacing dimension. Did the duchess you slighted last year, did the minister whose promotion you blocked seek a more direct form of revenge? This paranoia is a fascinating historical phenomenon in itself. The affair of the poisons didn't just expose a criminal network, it weaponized suspicion. It created a perfect storm for false accusations and the settling of old scores. Historians still debate how many of the accused were genuinely guilty and how many were simply victims of malicious gossip or confessions extracted under torture. In such a climate of fear, it was easy for an enemy to whisper a name to one of Laurent's informants, and suddenly you would find yourself under investigation. You watch this unfolding chaos with a sense of dread that is almost paralyzing. Your connection to La Voisin is no longer a distant, buried memory. It is a ticking time bomb. Every new arrest, every new name that is whispered in the hallways brings the crisis one step closer to your door. You tell yourself that La Voisin will protect you. You are her most important client. Surely she would not dare to name the king's own mistress. It is unthinkable. It would be an act of suicide. But as you lie awake at night, you remember the look in her eyes, shrewd, intelligent, and entirely unsentimental. She is a woman who has built her life on understanding and exploiting the weaknesses of others. And she knows your greatest weakness. She knows your secret. You are bound to her not by loyalty, but by a shared crime. And in the dark, terrifying logic of the interrogation chamber, a shared crime is not a bond, and you begin to fear that it is a weapon she will not hesitate to use to try and save herself. The scandal is now raging completely out of control. It is no longer just a police matter. It has become a full-blown crisis of the state. The names being whispered now reach the very highest echelons of the nobility. The regular courts are overwhelmed and, frankly, not equipped to handle a scandal that could potentially implicate the king's own circle. Louis XIV, a man obsessed with order and control, realizes he must intervene directly. His solution is swift and absolute. He creates a new, special court to handle the affair. It is given a chilling, dramatic name, the Chambre Ardente, which translates to the burning chamber. The name itself is a piece of historical theater, a deliberate callback to similar special courts from the 16th century that were set up to deal with heretics and other high-profile criminals. The name alone is designed to inspire terror. It promises swift, unforgiving justice. The Chamber Ardente is not a normal court of law. It has its own judges, handpicked by the king for their loyalty and severity. It holds its sessions in secret. Normal rules of evidence and procedure are flexible. Its mandate is clear: to root out the poisoners and their clients, no matter how high-ranking, and to put an end to the affair once and for all. It is, in effect, a weaponized tribunal aimed directly at the heart of the scandal. For you, the creation of the Chamber Ardente is the stuff of nightmares. A secret court, operating outside the normal laws, with the full authority of the king. It is an instrument of terrifying power, and it is being directed by the one man whose methodical patience you have come to fear, Serene. He is the chief prosecutor, the driving force behind its investigations. The court begins its work, and the trickle of accusations becomes a flood. Dozens of people are brought before the secret judges. The interrogations are relentless. While physical torture was officially regulated, the psychological pressure was immense. Prisoners were kept in harsh conditions, interrogated for hours on end, and faced with the testimony of their former associates, faced with the certainty of a gruesome execution, many chose to confess in the hope of receiving a more merciful sentence, and to make their confessions more valuable, they named names. The court becomes a stage for the most sensational theater in France. One of Lavois's associates, the renegade priest Etienne Gui Bourg, is brought before the judges. He is old, dissolute, and terrified. He confesses everything. He describes the black masses in lurid, horrifying detail. He speaks of the inverted prayers, the desecrated hosts, the pacts with demonic fraides who knelt at his blasphemous altar. With each confession, the web of complicity grows, tightening around the court of Versailles. The king is receiving daily reports from Serene. He reads the secret testimonies, the transcripts of the interrogations. He sees the names of people he knows, people he dines with, people who bow to him in the Hall of Mirrors. His magnificent court, his monument to order and glory, is being revealed as a nest of sinners, conspirators, and murderers. It is a profound crisis for the monarchy. The very foundation of Louis's power is his image as the Sun King, a divinely appointed ruler who presides over a brilliant and civilized court. This scandal threatens to shatter that image, to expose his reign as a glittering facade hiding a core of moral rot. Historians argue about the king's primary motivation during this time. Was he driven by a genuine desire for justice, a need to purge the evil from his kingdom? Or was his main concern damage control? Was he trying to protect the institution of the monarchy from a scandal that could destabilize it? The answer, as is so often the case with Louis, is likely a complex mixture of both. He was a genuinely pious man who was likely horrified by the sacrilege. He was also a masterful politician who understood the catastrophic potential of the scandal. You watch from the sidelines, trapped in a state of suspended terror. Your name has not yet been spoken in the Chamber Ardente, but you feel like it's only a matter of time. You scan the faces of your fellow courtiers, wondering who else shared your dark secret, who else made that desperate trip to Lavois's townhouse. The air at Versailles is thick with paranoia. No one trusts anyone. A friendly conversation can feel like an interrogation. A shared glance can be interpreted as an accusation. The burning chamber, though located in Paris, has cast its long, dark shadow over the sunlit palace of Versailles. And you know with a sickening certainty that it is only a matter of time before that shadow falls directly on you. The chamber ardente grinds on, a relentless machine processing the sins of the elite. The star witness, the center of this entire dark universe, is Lavoisier herself. She is brought before the judges time and time again. At first she is defiant, confident, using her intelligence and charisma to deflect and mislead. She admits to telling fortunes, to selling harmless herbal remedies, but she denies everything else. She is protecting her network, and above all, she is protecting her most clients. But Laurie is patient. He presents her with the testimony of her associates. He confronts her with the confessions of Marie Boss, of the priest G.U.I. Borg, of her own daughter. He shows her that her entire world has been dismantled, that her accomplices have already betrayed her. He leaves her to languish in prison, letting the hopelessness and the fear do their work. And slowly, piece by piece, she begins to break. Her defiance crumbles, replaced by a desperate, self-serving desire to trade information for a less gruesome fate. She starts to talk. She confirms the stories of the poisons, the powders of inheritance, the elaborate schemes to eliminate unwanted husbands, unrivals. She unravels the entire tapestry of her criminal enterprise for the judges. With each new revelation, the court of Versailles holds its breath. Whose name will she speak next? The tension is unbearable. Several prominent women are arrested directly from the palace, taken away in discreet carriages to face the secret court. One of them is the Comtesse de Soissons, a member of one of the most powerful families in France and, ironically, the king's first love from his youth. The scandal is now reaching into the king's own personal history. You follow these events with a terror that has hollowed you out completely. You are living on a knife's edge. You try to maintain your daily routine, to appear calm and unbothered, but it is a performance that drains every ounce of your energy. You feel the eyes of the court on you, the whispers that fall silent as you pass. They are all wondering, is she next? The question of why Lavoisier and others would name their powerful clients is a point of some debate. On the one hand, it seems suicidal. Why anger the very people who might have been able to help you? But from the perspective of a prisoner in a desperate situation, the logic is different. Naming a high-profile accomplice makes your own testimony more valuable. It proves you are telling the truth and giving the court what it wants. It might also be a form of revenge against a world that has abandoned you to your fate. And perhaps there was a belief that if the scandal reached high enough, if it implicated someone truly untouchable, the king might be forced to shut the whole investigation down to avoid an even greater catastrophe. It could be a desperate, last-ditch gamble to sink the whole ship. You find yourself studying the king's face, searching for any clue. Does he know? Has he heard your name yet in the secret reports from Laurie? His expression is unreadable, a mask of regal authority. He continues to treat you with a careful formal courtesy, but the warmth is gone. There is a new distance between you, a chasm of unspoken suspicion. You are both trapped in a terrible silent play, pretending that nothing is wrong while the world outside your gilded rooms is burning. The net continues to tighten. The Duchesse de Bouillon, another high-ranking lady of the court, is called to testify. She is famously arrogant and defiant. She treats the judges of the chamber ardente with contempt, at one point famously asking them if they really thought she would have bothered with a demon if she wanted to kill someone, implying she had more direct means. Her audacity is legendary, but even she cannot stop the relentless march of the investigation. Every name, every new thread leads back to the same place, Lavoisin's townhouse. She is the spider at the center of the web, and you know, with the cold certainty of the damned, that she is holding on to the most explosive thread of all, the thread that leads directly to you. You are just waiting for the moment she decides to pull it. The moment you have been dreading arrives, not with a clap of thunder, but in a quiet, secret report delivered from the chambre ardente to the king's private study. Lavoisin, her spirit broken, her hope for survival dwindling to a single desperate ember, finally plays her last and most valuable card. She speaks your name. It is not a simple accusation. She provides details. Excruciating, damning details. She tells the judges about your first visit, cloaked and anonymous, your face hidden in the shadows of her waiting room. She describes your desperation, your all-consuming jealousy of the young Mademoiselle de Fontaines. She recounts, in meticulous detail, the powders she mixed for you, the so-called love potions, the aphrodisiacs designed to win back the king's affection. But she doesn't stop there. Urged on by Lorraine's relentless questioning, she confesses to the darker services she provided you. She describes the blasphemous horror of the black masses. She tells them how you, the celebrated mistress of the most Christian king of France, lay upon a makeshift altar while a defrocted priest chanted backwards prayers over your body. She repeats the petitions you made to the darkness, for the king's love to be absolute, and for your rival to be eliminated. She connects your desires directly to the tragic fate of Angelique de Fontaines. She doesn't claim to have sold you a lethal poison for the girl. The story is more subtle, more insidious, and therefore more believable. She claims that the intent expressed during the sacrilegious rituals was enough, that you had, in effect, placed a curse upon the young duchess, a curse that manifested as her slow, wasting illness and eventual death. The testimony is a bombshell. It's the accusation the judges have been circling for months, the one that everyone suspected but no one dared to voice. It directly links the king's own inner circle, his own lover, the mother of his children, to the most depraved and criminal elements of the scandal. The historical record of this specific confession is a point of intense scholarly interest. Or did she, in her desperation, embellish the story, exaggerating your role to make her confession seem more valuable and perhaps to implicate you so profoundly that the king would be forced to intervene? Some historians suggest that Lavoisin, a master manipulator to the end, might have been crafting a narrative that was designed to be both shocking and, crucially, just plausible enough to be believed, while also being so scandalous it might overload the entire system. She wasn't just confessing, she was deploying a weapon of mass destruction. The news doesn't reach you through court gossip. It doesn't come as a formal summons. You learn of it through the silence, a sudden, profound, and terrifying silence from the king. He cancels a planned meeting. He avoids you in the public galleries. When his eyes do meet yours, they are cold, hard, and unreadable. The polite distance has become an icy wall. You are being frozen out, quarantined while the king processes the unthinkable. Your entire world shrinks to the confines of your lavish apartments. Your ladies in waiting flutter around you, their faces etched with fear. Your friends stop visiting. The solitude you once craved is now a suffocating prison. You are left alone with your thoughts, with the memory of Lavoisin's shrewd eyes, with the echo of the backward prayers. You know that your name is no longer just a whisper in the hallways. It is now a written word, part of an official record, sitting in a file under the relentless gaze of Gabriel de Lorraine. You have gone from being the son's favorite to being the star witness in the trial of the century. The only problem is, you are a witness who can never be allowed to testify. The man who delivers this report is Gabriel de Laragny himself. Imagine the scene, the king's private study at Versailles, a room of exquisite, masculine elegance, all dark wood, gilded leather, and maps of his kingdom. The Sun King, the absolute monarch, sits behind his vast desk. Before him stands the policeman, a man of sober dress and unwavering purpose. There is no one else in the room. This is a conversation that cannot be overheard. Laragny, ever the methodical bureaucrat, does not present the information with dramatic flair. He simply reports his findings, as he would with any other criminal case. He lays out the evidence, the interlocking testimonies, the corroborating details from different prisoners, the chilling consistency of the accusations. He explains the charges, complicity in the administration of unknown substances to the king's person, and participation in the blasphemous rituals of the Black Mass with the intent to cause harm to the late Duchess of Fontainebleau. Louis listens in silence, his face an impenetrable mask. This is the moment he has both sought and dreaded. He created the chamber ardente to excise a cancer from his kingdom, but now the cancer has been traced back to his own heart. The implications are staggering, a cascade of potential disasters. There is the personal betrayal. You, the woman he had loved, the mother of his children, had been secretly drugging him. You had been feeding him powders and potions, manipulating his affections, treating him not as a monarch or a lover, but as a mechanism to be controlled. It is a profound violation of trust, an assault on his purse and his will. The very idea is a deep, unforgivable insult to a man who believes his will is second only to God's. Then there is the public scandal. The affair is already a sensation, but this takes it to an entirely new level. To formally accuse you would be to admit to the entire world that the court of France, the beacon of European civilization, was poisoned from the very center, that the king himself was a victim of witchcraft and deceit practiced by his own mistress. It would make him look weak, foolish, and spiritually compromised. And finally, there is the matter of the children. Your 7 children by him, all legitimized, all holding noble titles. To brand you a poisoner and a blasphemer would be to taint them all, to cast a permanent shadow over their lives and their standing. It would be a dynastic crisis of his own making. The weight of this knowledge is immense. Laragny has done his job perfectly. He has followed the evidence wherever it led, without fear or favor, just as the king commanded. He has brought the truth to his sovereign. Now, the burden of that truth shifts from the policeman to the king. The question is no longer what happened. The question is what is to be done. Historians can only speculate about the precise emotions that churned within Louis XIV during this meeting. Was it rage, grief, a cold, political calculation? It was likely all of these things at once. He was a man betrayed by a woman he once loved. He was a king facing a catastrophic threat to his authority and legacy. And he was a father trying to protect his children from their mother's sins. Laragny stands waiting for his orders. He is a servant of the law, and the law points to one clear path: your arrest and trial. Justice demands it. The evidence is overwhelming. But Louis is not just a servant of the law. He is the law. The ultimate authority rests with him. He does not give the order to arrest you. He does not give the order to stop the investigation. He dismisses Laragny, taking the folio of testimony into his own possession. The policeman has delivered the poison pill of knowledge. Now the king must decide whether to swallow it or not. As Lorraine leaves the silent, opulent room, you are no longer just an accused criminal. You are a state secret, the most dangerous secret in the kingdom. The king is now trapped. He is a man caught between two impossible choices, each one leading to a different kind of disaster. It is a moment that will define not only your fate, but also the character of his reign. On one hand, there is the path of justice. This is the path that Lorraine, in his unwavering, logical way, has laid out for him. It is the path the Chambre Ardente was created to follow. It would involve issuing a warrant for your arrest. You would be taken from your lavish apartments at Versailles, probably in the dead of night to minimize the spectacle, and transported to the Bastille or another high-security prison in Paris. You would be formally charged before the secret court, and the sentence. For crimes of this magnitude, sacrilege, attempted regicide by poisonous feeding the king unknown substances would be legally defined, and conspiracy to murder, the punishment would be the most severe imaginable. A public, gruesome execution. The scandal would be monumental, but justice, in its terrifying, absolute form, would be served. The king would be seen as a ruler so committed to righteousness that he would sacrifice even his own family to uphold the law. But the cost of this path is catastrophic. It is a path of self-inflicted wounds. The trial would drag the name of the monarchy through the deepest mud. The intimate details of the king's life, his loves, his vulnerabilities, would become public record, debated in every tavern in Europe. It would expose him as a man who was deceived and manipulated for years by his own lover, making him look like a fool. It would forever tarnish your shared children. It would be a short and bloody sharp and bloody solution, but the scars would never fade. It would be a victory for justice, but a disaster for the image and stability of the crown. Then there is the other path, the path of the cover-up. This path requires the king to do something that goes against his every instinct for order and law. It requires him to actively suppress the truth. He would have to intervene in the proceedings of his own special court. He would have to order Lorraine and the judges to halt the investigation where you are concerned, to go no further, to bury the evidence. This path avoids the immediate, public catastrophe. It protects the king's image. It saves your children from the public shame of having a mother condemned as a witch. It keeps the darkest secrets of Versailles locked away from the prying eyes of the world. It preserves the illusion of a glorious, untainted reign. But this, too, has a terrible cost. It is a betrayal of the very principles of justice the Chambre Ardente was meant to uphold. It would mean letting a person accused of the most heinous crimes go unpunished simply because she was too well connected. It would be an act of profound hypocrisy. And it would be a secret that the king would have to carry for the rest of his life. He would know that his court was not purged of its sins, but that the greatest sin from view. He would be choosing his own reputation over the rule of law. This dilemma is a classic case study in the politics of absolute monarchy. Where does the man end and the state begin? Is the king's primary duty to justice or to the preservation of the monarchy itself? Historians have endlessly debated Louis's decision, seeing it as a pivotal moment. Was it an act of pragmatic statesmanship, a necessary evil to protect the kingdom from chaos? Or was it an act of supreme arrogance, a declaration that the king and his family weren't really above the law that governed mere mortals? Louis spaces the floors of his study, the damning report on his desk. He is weighing justice against stability, personal honor against his legacy. Your life hangs in the balance, but it is more than that. The very nature of his kingship is being decided in these silent, agonizing hours. and the choice he makes will not be clean or simple. It will be a compromise born of crisis, a solution that is as messy and morally ambiguous as the affair itself. The king makes his choice. It is not a public decree or a grand pronouncement. It is a quiet, secret order, a decision made in the shadows to contain a darkness that has grown too large for the light. He chooses the second path. He chooses the cover-up. He summons Ni one last time. We cannot know the exact words spoken between the monarch and his policemen, but the outcome is clear. The king gives a direct order that the investigation is to proceed no further in your direction. The thread of evidence that leads to your door is to be cut. Your name is to be removed from the official proceedings. The Chamber Ardente will continue its work, but it will be given new, invisible boundaries. It can pursue duchesses and marshals, but it must not touch the king's former mistress. Ni, the man of unwavering principle, must now obey a royal command that violates the very purpose of his investigation. He is a servant of the king, and the king has spoken. Justice is to be sacrificed for the sake of state security. But what to do with the evidence that already exists? The folio on the king's desk, containing the detailed confessions of Lavois and others, is a document of almost unimaginable toxicity. It cannot be allowed to survive. It cannot be filed away in some dusty archive where a future historian or a political rival might one day discover it. It is too dangerous. It must be utterly and completely destroyed. And so another secret event takes place. The king, perhaps with a trusted minister as a witness, personally oversees the destruction of the most compromising files. He takes the pages filled with the accounts of your visits to Lavoisian, of the powders and the potions, of the black masses and the whispered curses, and he feeds them to the fire. Imagine the scene, the fireplace in the king's study, the very heart of power in France. The absolute monarch stands before it not as a judge, but as a destroyer of evidence. He watches as the pages curl, blacken, and turn to ash. He watches as the ink that spells out your name and your sins dissolves into smoke and disappears up the chimney. He is actively, personally erasing a part of his own history. He is burning the truth to protect the legend. This act of destruction is a fact that historians are largely agreed upon, pieced together from gaps in the official records and mentions in private letters and memoirs of the time. The official archive of the Chamber Ardente is conspicuously incomplete. The files relating to the most high-profile aristocratic suspects, especially you, are simply gone. It is a deliberate state-sponsored void. This great fire of the files is Louis XVI versus ultimate active damage control. With this single act, he achieves several goals. He saves you from trial and execution, and in doing so, saves himself and his children from the ensuing scandal. He allows the Chamber Ardente to continue its work, concluding the affair of the poisons by executing the lower-level participants like Lavoisian, who is burned at the stake, providing a public spectacle of justice without revealing the most dangerous truths. He maintains his authority and the pristine image of his court, at least on the surface, but the fire does not destroy the truth. It only buries it. Louis knows what was written on those pages. Amy knows. A handful of judges and clerks know. The secret is not gone. It has just been driven underground, where it will fester. You are now protected by the most powerful force in the kingdom, a royal cover-up. You are safe from the executioner's hand. But you are not free. The king has not saved you out of love or forgiveness. He has saved you because your public disgrace would be his own. He has not pardoned you. He has contained you. and you are about to discover that the fire that consumed the evidence has also forged the bars of a new kind of prison. The fire in the king's study has saved your life, but it has condemned you to a living death. You are not arrested. You are not publicly accused. But you are, from this moment forward, a prisoner. Your prison is not the Bastille, with stone walls and iron bars. It is far more subtle and, in some ways, more cruel. Your prison is the palace of Versailles itself. The change is immediate and absolute. The king issues no decree, but his will is made known through 1,000 invisible signals that everyone at court understands perfectly. You are to be shunned. You are now an unperson, an unentity. You retain your opulent suite of apartments, but they are no longer a center of power. They are your gilded cage. The courtiers, who had been watching and waiting, now have their cue. They react with the ruthless instinct for survival that defines their existence. To be seen speaking to you, to be seen in your company, is now a mark of political suicide. They avoid you with a diligence that is almost comical. When you walk down the hall of mirrors, the glittering crowds part before you, not out of respect, but as if you are carrying a contagious disease. Conversations cease. Eyes are averted. You are surrounded by a vacuum of silence. Your former friends, the people who laughed at your jokes and saw your counsel, now look straight through you. The isolation is total and suffocating. You are surrounded by thousands of people, yet you have never been more alone. It is a psychological torture of exquisite cruelty, designed by a king who understands that social death can be as painful as physical death. The king himself models this behavior for the entire court. He no longer visits you in public. Your intimate connection, the very foundation of your identity for over a decade, is severed completely. On the rare occasions when protocol forces him to acknowledge you, he does so with an icy, formal nod that is more damning than any public denunciation. He looks at you with the eyes of a stranger who knows your darkest secrets. You are trapped in a strange paradox. You are living in the most public place in the world, yet you are completely invisible. You are surrounded by luxury, but you are a pauper in terms of human connection. The beautiful gowns, the exquisite furniture, the priceless works of art in your rooms, they are all just decorations in your solitary confinement. This period of your life is a testament to the absolute power Louis XIV wielded. He didn't need a formal trial or a legal sentence to punish you. He could simply will you into oblivion. He controlled the social ecosystem of Versailles so completely that he could excommunicate you from it with a single, unspoken command. Historians often point to this as the ultimate expression of his authority, the power not just to condemn a body, but to erase a soul from public life. You have nothing to do but wait. You wait for a sign of forgiveness that never comes. You watch from your window as the life of the court goes on without you. You see new favorites rise, new dramas unfold. You are a relic of a past age, a ghost haunting the palace. The days are endless, a monotonous cycle of waking, dressing for no one, eating alone, and staring at the walls of your beautiful prison. The king's decision to keep you at court, rather than banishing you immediately, is a subject of some speculation. Was it a form of protracted punishment, forcing you to watch the world you lost every single day? Or was it a practical matter, a way to keep you under his direct observation, to ensure you couldn't cause any more trouble? Perhaps it was a mixture of both. By keeping you close, he could control the narrative, ensuring that you never had the opportunity to tell your side of the story. You are a living secret, and he is your warden. The sun still streams through the windows of Versailles. The fountains still dance in the gardens. The music still plays in the state apartments. But for you, the light has gone out. The world you once ruled has become your personal hell, a constant, glittering reminder of everything you had and everything you have lost. You are no longer the Sun King's favorite. You are his prisoner. The years in your gilded cage stretch on a long, gray expanse of silent days. The court, once a stage for your triumphs, becomes a landscape of your humiliation. But even this strange, suspended state cannot last forever. The king's sense of order, his need to resolve untidy situations, eventually demands a final act. Your continued presence at Versailles, even as a ghost, is a loose end. It's a constant, quiet reminder of a scandal he wishes to forget entirely. The end of your life at court does not come with a dramatic confrontation. It comes as a quiet, final instruction delivered through an intermediary. You are to leave Versailles. You are to be banished. The word banishment isn't used, of course. The official language is softer. You are choosing to retire from court life. You are seeking a quieter existence in the country. Everyone understands what it means. It is the final, formal severance. You are given time to make your arrangements, but the decision is not negotiable. You pack up your life, the remnants of your reign. The gowns, the jewels, the portraits. Each object is a memory of a life that is now over. The servants who pack your belongings work in silence, their faces carefully neutral. They are packing away a piece of history, a fallen queen. Your departure is the final, quiet humiliation. There is no grand farewell, no crowd of weeping friends. You leave in a carriage, stripped of any royal insignia, just as you once arrived for your secret meetings with La Voisin. You look back at the sprawling, magnificent palace of Versailles one last time. It had been the center of your universe, the place where you had experienced the heights of power and the depths of despair. Now, you are leaving it forever. You know that the gates are closing behind you, not just on a palace, but on your entire former self. You retreat to one of your country estates, far from the orbit of the king. Here, you are no longer a prisoner, but an exile. The silence is different. It is no longer the suffocating, hostile silence of the court. It is the vast, empty silence of the countryside. But it is a solitude nonetheless. News from Versailles still reaches you, of course, carried by letters and the occasional brave visitor. You hear of the king's new life. After the death of his long-suffering wife, Queen Maria Theresa, he secretly married his last great love, a devout and pious woman named Madame de Montespan. She had once been the governess to your own children, a woman you had plucked from obscurity and placed at court. In a final, bitter irony, the woman you had hired to care for your children has now taken your place, not as a mistress, but as the king's secret, morganatic wife. She gives him the pious, stable life you never could. The court, under her influence, becomes more sober, more religious. The era of glittering spectacle and publics, in that you presided over, is well and truly over. The historical debate over your exile is a curious one. For all intents and purposes, you were punished. You lost your power, your position, your access to the king. And yet, you escaped the fate of Lavois, and so many others who were executed or imprisoned for life. You were allowed to live out your days in immense wealth and luxury, surrounded by your children, who remained powerful and influential figures. From one perspective, you got away with it. You suffered a punishment perfectly tailored to your personality, a slow, lingering fade into irrelevance. In your exile, you have all the time in the world to reflect. The frantic, desperate ambition that drove you for so many years has nowhere left to go. You are left with only your memories and your conscience. You think of the king, of Angelique, of the dark room in Paris and the ruined chapel. You are living with the ghosts of your past, and in the quiet of the countryside, their whispers are louder than ever. You have been banished from the world of light, and now must learn to live in the long, quiet shadows. In the quiet emptiness of your exile, a new ambition begins to take root, one born not of a desire for power, but of a desperate need for redemption. The final chapter of your life is to be a performance, just like all the others, but this time, the audience is not the king or his court. The audience, you hope, is God. You embark on a campaign of spectacular, public piety. You, who once lay on a blasphemous altar, now become a titan of Catholic charity. Your immense wealth, once spent on gowns and jewels to captivate a king, is now poured into founding convents, hospitals, and orphanages. You become one of the great philanthropists of your age. Every brick laid in a new chapel, every bowl of soup served in one of your hospices is a testament to your repentance. It is an attempt to outweigh your secret sins with public works of grace. You surround yourself with priests and nuns. Your days are no longer structured by court etiquette, but by the rhythm of the prayer bell. You attend Mass daily. You engage in long, rigorous fasts. You wear simpler, more modest clothing, trading the vibrant silks of your past for the somber blacks and grays of a penitent. It is a carefully constructed image of a woman who has turned her back on the vanities of the world and dedicated her life to her soul's salvation. This final transformation is, like everything else in your life, a subject of historical debate. Was this a genuine, profound conversion? Was it the act of a woman terrified of eternal damnation, desperately trying to bargain her way into heaven? Or was it one last, magnificent performance, a way to rewrite your own legacy, to ensure that you would be remembered, not as the disgraced mistress and suspected poisoner, but as a great patroness of the Church? The human heart is complex enough to hold both sincere faith and a canny sense of public relations at the same time. Your children, now grown and powerful figures in their own right, are a constant presence in your life. They are a living testament to your former glory. Through them you maintain a connection, however distant, to the world of the court. They treat you with respect and affection, your scandalous past a buried, unspoken secret within the family. You are the matriarch of a great dynasty, a role you embrace with the same authority you once brought to being the king's favorite. You never see the king again. He remains a distant, powerful figure, living out his final years in the pious world he built with Madame de Montespan. You exist in separate orbits, to stars that once burned together now light years apart. Do you still love him? Or do you resent him for his cold, unforgiving rejection? Does he ever regret the fire that consumed the evidence, or the silence that condemned you? These are questions that will never be answered, lost in the unwritten history of the heart. Your death, when it comes, is a quiet affair, far from the grand stage of Versailles. You die in one of the convents you patronized, surrounded by the prayers of the nuns you supported. You have spent years building this final narrative, the story of the penitent sinner who found peace in God. It is the story you want the world to remember, but history has a longer memory. It remembers the other stories too. The story of the brilliant, witty mistress at the height of her power, the story of the desperate, jealous woman making a pact in a dark room, the story of the prime suspect in a nation-gripping scandal. Your life becomes a legend, a cautionary tale about ambition, love, and the terrifying lengths one might go to for power. You are not just one woman, you are many. The sun's favorite, the shadow queen, the prisoner of Versailles, and the pious penitent. And even now, in the quiet of the night, historians are still trying to decide which one of them was the real you. And so the story rests. The ambition, the jealousy, the fear, it all dissolves now like smoke from a dying candle, fading into the quiet fabric of the past. You can feel that sense of distance, can't you? The passions of a world so long ago, they can't touch you here. They are just echoes now, soft and faint, like rain on a distant roof. There is nothing left to follow, nothing to understand. The path has led us here, to this place of deep and peaceful stillness. The names and the places to drift away, leaving only the gentle feeling of a story having been told. The light of Versailles has faded, and the darkness that awaits you now is not a menacing one filled with secrets, but a soft, welcoming darkness. A darkness that invites rest. It is a quiet harbor after a long journey, and you can simply float here, in this calm water, letting the gentle tide of slumber carry you where it will. There is nowhere else you need to be. Nothing else you need to do, just rest. The final word has been whispered. If your mind is still gently stirring, you're welcome to drift into another of my stories. If not, I wish you a deep and peaceful slumber. Good night.